If you look at all these people talking about him constantly training, and then you see him himself talking about all he wants to do is fight people, it doesn't matter who, he just wants to get in the ring. I think that this dude lives, breathes, dies, shits, eats, sleeps fighting, which is awesome to fucking see. That's the exact type. Khamzat Chimaev, in my opinion, is becoming my number one fucking guy. I'm becoming his number one fucking fan. Like, the dude is calling out everybody. The dude is constantly talking about fighting. He's constantly fucking fighting. He's backing it up. He's delivering entertaining fights. How could you not like this dude? What the fuck is going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Kevin Hoop Show, coming at you every Monday with this long-ass hour-long episode. You're damn right I am, because we've got some good news coming out of Khamzat Chimaev's camp. We've got a lot of things starting to come to fruition in 2023, it looks like. So, some exciting things on the horizon, it looks like. But also, Christmas just happened, ladies and gents. So, if you guys celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If it's Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. If it's Kwanzaa, Happy Kwanzaa. Whatever holiday you celebrate, if you do celebrate anything, happy holidays to whatever you celebrate. From the Kevin Hoop Show, from me to you, have a good one. We've got the new year coming up in just, today's the 26th, so in 5 or 6 days. I believe Saturday is the New Year's Eve parties, and that's when all that shit's going down, so there is a UFC fight night or a UFC grappling event on UFC Fight Pass, which I think I'm going to be covering. Later news on that will be coming out later this week, aka basically Wednesday. Basically all the fine details. I got to look more into that. But going into this podcast and getting into the main stuff that I really wanted to talk about is there's been a lot of stuff kind of happening and some lead-up things that are happening I've seen over the weekend. Khamzat Chimaev's releasing some vlogs from Dubai, which I think is really cool. I saw one thing on Twitter, and it was a fucking such out there thing. I took a screenshot of it just so I could actually show you guys. I'll put it on the screen here. But it was McGregor versus somebody, I forget the name of the guy. No, not Vera versus Sandhagen. McGregor versus Siver 2 as a lightweight bout. And the main thing I don't believe that that's going to happen is because it's at lightweight. And Conor McGregor is no way fighting at fucking lightweight anymore. After the size that he's gained. There's no way he's going to be fighting at lightweight. A thing that did get announced over the last week, Corey Sandhagen versus Chito Vera. That's going to be a very good fight at bantamweight. I know Chito Vera's been kind of moving up in the division, so definitely going to be a big challenge for him facing Corey Sandhagen. He's been at the top 3, top 5 in the bantamweight division for a little bit now, honestly. I believe he fought for the belt. I could be wrong there, so he's in the top 5 right now. Marlon Chito Vera. I just call him Chito Vera. Everyone knows him by Chito Vera. I forget who Corey Sandhagen fought recently that he lost. Someone he faced recently that he lost to. It wasn't Song Yadong. He won that fight, which I thought he was going to win. It was Peter Yan. So I thought it was Aljamain, but I wasn't sure. But it was Peter Yan. And I think that was after Aljamain took the belt from him. And he fought TJ, which was another tough fight for him. I didn't know who was going to take that one. And he has fought Aljamain as well, but I think that was before Aljamain got the belt. That was way back in 2020. But Corey Sandhagen's been at the top of the division. He's faced the baddest of the baddest. So if Chito Vera is an up-and-comer, like everyone thinks he is, he should be able to wipe Corey Sandhagen. He should be able to wipe his face on the mat, which is what I was trying to say. Really wasn't even going to be talking about that, but I forgot I took a picture of that over the weekend as one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about in this podcast. But the main thing I wanted to talk about, the main thing that I think is going to be building up in the next couple of weeks, and I think I'm a little early to it, but I like being the first person to things. And I've been talking about Hamzat recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago when he fought back in September. Kind of just thinking about what was going to happen next with him, or after the whole Alex Pereira fight. He was back in talks of fighting Alex Pereira, and it looked like that was going to be the fight that was going to happen. But now it seems like he's saying that there's a lot of flakiness with fighters. A lot of fighters are talking fucking trash, and they're not backing it up. The classic thing we see with some MMA guys. Now, it's never really said who it is, but you can process of elimination. Alex Pereira has to be in one of those guys that he's basically calling out as a bitch. If you look at his Dubai vlog in the first one, he said he's 6-1, and the guy he faced and lost against wasn't even fighting in the UFC. So, like, it wasn't even that good, he was saying. So I think that was a little bit of a calling out of Alex Pereira, calling him a little bitch, but that's what I'm here to watch, ladies and gents. That's what we're here to do. That's what these fighters are here to do, at least. I'm here to fucking sit here and commentate on it and be entertained by it at the least. Now, if you don't know, Alex Pereira has just recently fought Israel Adesanya back in October, I believe. If not, it was November. I think it was November, actually, because Islam Makhachev fought in October. So it was in November. That's when Alex Pereira had a big upset against Izzy at middleweight and won the belt. So this is where I think the lightweight division has a little bit of a problem, and the whole entire middleweight division kind of has a little bit of a problem. As in, the championship guys, the guys at the top, either can't fight or don't want to fight. Alex Pereira, I have a feeling, is very picky on the guys he's trying to face, or at least is just a picky guy at the end of his career. You know, I know he is at the end of his career. I know MMA isn't his main background in MMA, or I know MMA isn't his main source of fighting. That isn't his go-to thing to fight. His main go-to is obviously kickboxing. And I think that might show a little bit when it comes to the fighters that are being talked about that he's facing, or at least the fighters that are talking about that were supposed to face him. Hence, a.k.a. Khamzat Chimaev shit-talking him. Now, I think Khamzat Chimaev has all fucking rights to shit-talk him if he wants to, if Alex Pereira backed out of a fight that they were supposed to have. Now, whether it was supposed to be at 205 or 185 or 180, I think no matter what, the fight was supposed to happen for a belt, and the only way that was going to happen was for it to be at middleweight. So I really don't know why Alex Pereira would all of a sudden come out and say he wants to have it at 205 or light heavyweight. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. I talked about that in the previous videos. It didn't make any fucking sense when he was talking about that. So, if anything, it seemed like a bitch move because he didn't want to risk his title and put his title on the line, which is some bitch shit. Like, come on, dude. You can't be doing that type of shit. Like, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to back it up. You got to put something on the line. Especially if Hamzat isn't even really... He's ranked 3 in the welterweight division. He's not even ranked in the middleweight division, let alone going all the way up to light heavyweight. And there is some things that I want to talk about and touch on when it comes to him fighting at welterweight and him moving up to middleweight and why it probably makes sense. And the main thing is he's talked a lot recently about taking fights with 3 weeks notice, 4 weeks notice. And I actually dug up some articles of when the fight was announced and kind of verbally confirmed with Nate Diaz, the whole Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz fight that never actually happened back in September. Yeah, back in September. That's when Hamzat ended up fighting Kevin Holland. Now, the whole reason to begin with that the fight with Kevin Holland happened was because Hamzat missed weight fighting against Nate Diaz in welterweight at 170. So with that, Nate Diaz declined to fight Hamzat, which he was in full rights of doing because he missed weight by 4 or 5 pounds. It was something a little bit more than you usually see, like a pound and a half maybe a pound. At most, you'll see people go over. Usually not 4 or 5 pounds over, which is what Hamzat was. Now, I was looking into it, and it did look like Khamzat Chimaev only had 3 weeks, 4 weeks notice to actually get ready for that fight. Now, if that's true, I do think for any fighter to cut weight or to get ready for a fight with 3 or 4 weeks notice, it's going to be hard. But to cut weight is something completely different than actually getting ready and training for a fighter. Anyone can train for a fight. When it comes to cutting weight, your kidneys can actually shut down. So there is a limit to how much weight you can cut. Anybody can go into the gym and overtrain or train for 4 or 5 hours straight. It's just pushing yourself. It just happened recently with Gordon Ryan's recent opponent that was supposed to happen in the UFC Invitational number 3. Vinny Mangalis, I know I pronounced the name a little wrong, but to go further into it, his kidneys actually shut down and he had to get hospitalized because he had to cut 20 to 40 pounds worth of weight, and he was completely dehydrating himself and shutting down his kidneys to the point where he had to get hospitalized. So there is limits to weight cutting, and I think that if Khamzat Chimaev wants to fight anybody, let's just say that if he's going to continue fighting with 3 or 4 weeks notice, it's better for him to fight at welterweight, because then he's going to make weight a lot easier if he's fighting, it's better for him to fight at middleweight if he's going to take fights with 3 weeks notice. Just as simple as that. He's going to have to cut less weight with shorter time. Now, if he were to get that 3 months preparation that a lot of fighters usually get for a fight, I think he would be able to fight at welterweight if he wants to. If he doesn't want to fight at welterweight, though, I do feel like back in 2019 he showed a clip of him saying he wanted to face Usman, saying, I'm going to fight you soon, back in 2019. Now, I understand the pandemic happened and everything, but Khamzat Chimaev definitely was at one of those top-ranked positions. Now, whether it was because he just didn't face Leon Edwards or the matchup just never happened for some reason, and that's why Leon Edwards got the number 1 spot and fought Usman, whether it's because of that or not, I do think Usman could have fought Hamzat at that time period instead of fighting Leon Edwards. Now, Khamzat Chimaev, I don't have his whole entire fight record right now. I don't have his whole entire timeline. He might have already had a fight scheduled either a month after that, a month before that. I have no clue. I'm just saying I think Khamzat Chimaev could have been a number 1 contender for that belt at that time compared to Leon Edwards. Just for the fact that Khamzat Chimaev has been on the top. He hasn't lost. He hasn't shown any weaknesses. And same thing with Leon Edwards. He got to the number 1 contender position for a reason. He definitely fought high-ranked guys. He definitely was on a winning streak and deserved that spot. I just think Khamzat Chimaev has a lot of hype behind him right now, and specifically for the UFC, I think they want him to fight for a belt soon. And it's just like, come the fuck on. When is this guy going to... I think he can deliver entertaining fights. Not only do I think he can hold the belt for a long period of time, but I think that the dude can deliver entertaining fights that are just going to be more than just grappling. This dude's going to end fights quick. This dude is going to bring entertaining, bloody fights, whether he's on the top or whether he's striking with the guy. I think he brings entertaining fights. Just look at any of his last recent fights. They're pretty entertaining in my fucking opinion. When he's diving across the fucking ring to tackle Kevin Holland and get a takedown and ends the fight in the first fucking minute. Come on! This is Conor McGregor-esque fighting personality that we're seeing. And I think he's literally willing to smash anybody that's willing to face him. Now, there's my whole entire little monologue on Khamzat Chimaev, and I'm still going to keep on going with it. To go more into the news speaking, and instead of my just opinions on why he's the best, to really tone in or zoom in on when we're going to see him next. As for the opponent, we're probably not going to know the opponent until a month out, until a month and a half out, most likely. Even though I would like him to get a fair match and get a 3-month training camp and good preparation and good weight gain, or weight loss, I'm sorry, which I do think he's going to have. So in his past recent vlogs that he's posted, he has said he's in training camp. Now, usually for any fighter saying that they're in training camp, that means that's a 12-week or 3-month time period. They're going to be training every day, if not 5 to 6 days a week to 7 days a week. Very hard training, not necessarily new things, but hard sparring, maybe not hard sparring, and every fighter's training camp is different, but these guys are really zoning in on things they want to work on, especially if they have an opponent. They're going to be looking at VOD or video from their opponent, focusing on strengths and weaknesses that their opponent has and strengths and weaknesses that they need to develop going against their next opponent. Now, Khamzat Chimaev said he's in training camp but doesn't know his opponent. He said that the UFC has given him a new opponent every week. I've seen a whole entire thing or article that he's had 4 different opponents given to him, and each and every single one of them has backed off or backed away, ran away, however you want to fucking say it. Each opponent has... Well, I can't even figure out how to... Each opponent has turned down the fight against Khamzat Chimaev. Now, whether it's been 4, whether it's been 3, whether it's been 10, Khamzat Chimaev is in a training camp, and there's not... he also said, I should say, that he is planning or fighting in Vegas in March. So, with that, there's a February fight night that's after UFC 284, which is like February 25th. That fight night is in Vegas. Now, it's in February, not March, so you can take that one out of the equation. Then there's March 4th. We have UFC 285, which I thought was in London for some reason. I don't know why. I thought I heard somebody say that it was in London. I completely misspoke on a video or on the last podcast last week. I completely misspoke. I made a whole... If you look at my videos posted recently, it's the Usman versus Edwards video. Those two are in the thumbnail. I don't know where the fuck I heard it from, but I heard somebody say Leon Edwards was probably going to fight in March, and I just jumped on it and made a whole entire video about how it's good for not only Leon to fight in March in London, but also for Paddy Pimblett to fight in March in London. And the March, the UFC 285 card is not even in fucking London. Dana White, I think the whole thing I got mixed up is Dana White said that they're in talks about getting the O2 Arena, which is where they usually do events and everything for the UFC in London. I thought it was the March card that he talked about, but I must have mixed that up with videos that I was watching and articles that I was reading. But that was my fault. If you guys watched that one and got your hopes up, that was completely me speaking. If you didn't watch it, don't go back and fucking watch it. Go back and watch a different video on my channel. But speaking of Khamzat Chimaev talking about fighting in March, the UFC 285 card March 4th is in Vegas. And after that, there is another UFC fight night that is in Vegas, I think March 11th. So about a week after that. Now, if you're the UFC and you know the backing that Khamzat Chimaev have, which to me, he's got 280,000 plus subscribers on YouTube. I don't even think that Alexander Volkanovski has that much. I think in general, Khamzat Chimaev has a lot of hype behind him, especially when it comes to the Europe and Asian side of viewers in the MMA community. So I do think him being on the UFC 285 card would help with your pay-per-view viewership and pay-per-view buys. So, and if you're trying to build a card, he's definitely a good co-main event. If you're going to have a title shot or a title fight be the main event, which you most likely will, every UFC pay-per-view has a title belt or a title or belt as the main event. So I think him being a good co-main event would help your pay-per-view buys in general. You get the pay-per-view buys for the main event and then the extra pay-per-view buys for people who want to see specifically the co-main event, which is always good for money. You know, the UFC likes money, and that's definitely a good money move if you're going to go into predictions on when he's going to fight. If he fights March 11th in the fight night, I'm not complaining. I definitely get to watch him for free then. I get to watch the pay-per-view on UFC 285, and I'm assuming that co-main event, if it's not him, is going to be good. And then I get to watch him for free the next week, so I'm definitely not complaining. Not to mention, that's definitely going to be a good, entertaining 2 or 3 weeks, not only for the channel, but just for good entertainment purposes. So that's always good. I did talk about the whole main reason for missing the Nate Diaz fight. That was the thing I really wanted to talk about. And I do think him being in the training camp now gives him that 3-month time period to actually lose weight and to get to and to focus on getting to the right weight when the actual fight week occurs. So usually fighters have a target weight they want to be coming up to fight week. And then up to fight week, it's usually just a water cut, 5-10 pounds. That's usually pretty easy for fighters. Now, with the Nate Diaz fight, it didn't look like it was just a 5-10 pound water cut. It looked like it was a 10-20 pound water cut, which is definitely goes into those unhealthy measures when a doctor tells you do not cut any more weight or your kidneys will shut down, which is exactly what freaking happened. So I definitely think that him having this 3-month training camp is only going to be good for him. It's only going to make him have a lot more success when it comes to whoever his opponent is going to be. Now, his opponent having less time for him, whoever that is only going to affect the opponent more or less in a negative way, because their opponent should have, in my opinion, is going to want more time. They should have more time to prepare for a Hamzat level type of fighter. Now, having a month, having 4 weeks, 3 weeks to prepare for a guy like Hamzat isn't easy at all, especially for someone that I think is so versatile like Hamzat. He's willing to fight anybody at all times. That means that the dude is willing to fight any background, any time, any place. He doesn't matter about the crowd. He doesn't matter about home field advantage. The dude just wants to get the belt. He just wants to fight. A lot of his training partners, and I think that this is cool, that his coaches, his training partners, all the people that talk about Khamzat Chimaev have talked about how much this dude trains. And I really haven't heard anybody else get talked about training like this. And if anything, usually it gets talked in a negative way. And maybe a little bit is talked about in a negative way when it's people that aren't in his fight camp that talk about him in this way. But they all talk about how this guy just wants to keep on training. After he's done training, he's then going to work out. After he's done working out, he goes back to training. And then he does crazy rounds, crazy sparring, and then more, and then more, and then more. And if this guy's done, then it just goes on and on and on. He never fucking stops training. And a lot of people will talk like that, but when you have guys unexpectedly talking about him in that aspect, I think it really goes to show that if you look at all these people talking about him constantly training, and then you see him himself talking about all he wants to do is fight people, it doesn't matter who, he just wants to get in the ring. I think that this dude lives, breathes, dies, shits, eats, sleeps fighting, which is awesome to fucking see. That's the exact type. Khamzat Chimaev, in my opinion, is becoming my number one fucking guy. I'm becoming his number one fucking fan. Like, the dude is calling out everybody. The dude is constantly talking about fighting. He's constantly fucking fighting. He's backing it up. He's delivering entertaining fights. How could you not like this dude? Talk about McGregor-esque. McGregor personality. Yeah, he's not, to the extent and to the flamboyancy that McGregor was, but he's constantly shit-talking in his own way, which I'm all about. The dude is making his own personality. He's becoming his own person, which I am all about. I'm trying to do the same thing, my man. So I see what he's doing. I see that. I'm a fan of that. Honestly, I'll say it right now. Khamzat Chimaev, I'm your number one fan. He's my number one fighter in the UFC right now. And he deserves a title shot now, Dana White. What the fuck are we doing? My gosh, when you really think about it, the dude deserves a fucking title shot. He's not only a company guy, he's not only a fucking badass. Back in 2019, Paddy Pimblett was talking about how he was, struggling and living in the gym. Same thing with this dude. And in my opinion, this dude has way more fucking skill than Paddy fucking the baddie when that dude literally goes back on his fucking word. The dude says, oh, it was such an easy fight. And then, oh, dude, Jared, it was so hard to knock you out. You're such a good fighter. It was such a challenging fight. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit, Paddy fans. Get the fuck out of here. I'm done with Paddy Pimblett. I am now on the Hamzat train. I was on it weeks ago. I'm on it even more now. Come on, ladies and gents. How can we not wake up to this? I literally watched those Dubai vlogs, and it opened up my eyes. I didn't know back in 2019 this dude was fucking living in the gym, struggling, maybe not struggling to the extent that I think or that everyone may perceive. But, you fast forward 2-3 years later to the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, the dude's making vlogs in Dubai, driving Ferraris, wearing Rolexes, having fans come up to him to ask him to sign autographs. The dude has blown up in the past 3 to 4 years. So, tippable to Khamzat Chimaev. Hats off to Khamzat Chimaev. The dude's a fucking savage. And speaking of savages, a guy that he trains with that he actually talked about in those Dubai vlogs, I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name, but Guram Kutalades. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. That's my fault, man. I'm very bad at pronunciation in general. But Guram is actually a pretty big training partner, or a very important training partner, it seems like, to Khamzat Chimaev in these vlogs at least. And I'm sure it was also a little bit of Hamzat trying to get Guram ready for fighting at UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro, which is coming up at the end of January. That's going to be an awesome fight. We've got Davidson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno as a co-main event with Jamal Hill, Glover Teixeira. I do believe this fight's going to be on the prelims. If not, it's going to be one of the first, if not the first fight on the undercard, or on the, I guess that would be the undercard, because then there's the prelims, the undercard, then the main card. So, however the fuck you want to say, I don't think he's on the main event, he's not on the main card. But I do think that this is going to be a pretty important fight for him for a couple of reasons. And Hamzat kind of talked about it a little bit. I actually went back and looked at his last fights. He only has 2 fights in the UFC. He's 1-1, so he's won 1 and lost 1. He won his first fight, which I believe was in 2020, and lost his most recent fight, which was in 2022. I might have that reversed. He might have won his first fight and lost his most recent, or lost his first and won his most recent. One of the fucking two. Either way. Hamzat touched on a little bit of why, number one, he might have lost, and why there was such a big gap. Because as an up-and-comer, any up-and-comer in the UFC, they want to fight 3 times a year. You definitely want to get your name out there, number one, and you also want to start to get wins under your belt. So if you're not fighting 3 times a year, you should at least be fighting 2 times a year as an up-and-coming rookie. Obviously not all on pay-per-views. There's multiple fight nights. There's prelims you can fight on. And, moving on as a fighter, eventually you get to fight on those pay-per-views, or you get to headline a regular fight night. Now, with Guram, it seems like he had some surgery after that 2020 fight. And then he also was dealing with some family problems. It seemed like Hamzat might have mentioned his dad. I don't know whether it was family problems or someone was sick or ill. I don't know. That's not my business. But either way, I think that this is Guram's kind of comeback. This is, or not really comeback, but his comeback. I think this is where he's really, or maybe not his comeback, but his last chance to really give it a go in the UFC and come back, try and fight once in the beginning of the year, another time in the summer of next year, and then maybe the same time this year, next year, aka the end of the year. Sorry, I had a little snot. Something blocking my nose there. But talking about Guram fighting 3 times next year, that's definitely something he's going to want to do, and I think the start of that is this Rio de Janeiro fight. Now, I don't think the guy he's facing is, that big of a challenge. And that's not to say that, he's going to wipe the mat with him. Might just be, I've never heard of the guy. Let's actually pull it up, though, and figure things out real quick. Teixeira versus Hill. Scroll. So he's going up against Thiago Moises, who's from Brazil. So that might be a little bit of an interesting aspect of the fight. He might have a little bit of a home field advantage, Thiago. That might get into Guram's head a little bit. I highly doubt it. You see these Dagestani guys, or these guys from Russia, from that general area, really have a strong mindset. They're pretty strong-minded in general. And I think that probably won't have as much of an effect as, someone like Brad Travers, who actually I think is a pretty good up-and-coming guy. That's probably going to be a good prelim fight. But I just thought, I saw Paul Craig in the vlog. They were training at this awesome fucking gym. So I don't know whether it was the same training facility that they trained at when they're sparring and doing pad work and actual wrestling. But they went to this gym, weightlifting gym, I should say, sorry. Where you lift weights, there's cardio machines, more of an actual American gym that you would think of. And it was just a fucking awesome looking gym. I don't know the surroundings that were surrounding the building, whether it was in a city, whether it was in a rural part where you had a lot of country to look at, or mountain ranges to look at. But it was this big glass fucking wall that was the side or wall of the building. It was just a glass wall that everybody working out on the inside could look out of, just as like a nice view to look at while you're working out, instead of having like a big ass mirror. It's just, just look through the fucking window, quote unquote, or the whole entire glass wall, and you get to look at something cool. At least from the inside, it looked pretty fucking cool. It was dark outside, so you couldn't really see the surroundings or really what was going on the outside of the windows and the glass. But even the inside of the building was like a complex almost, or like a warehouse type vibe, but very, very high quality warehouse. I'm talking high quality warehouses where you make that good cocaine in, if you know what I'm talking about. I totally butchered that joke by saying God damn it. We'll get there on the jokes, but I do think that the Dubai level of gyms and everything is fucking, even the lighting and the light fixtures they had, everything's just better in Dubai, And I definitely would like to make it out there eventually at some point in my life, whether it's to watch a UFC fight or just to go experience the culture. I would definitely love to do that sometime in my life. I've seen a lot of things in Dubai when it comes to videos, and I definitely am a fan of the car culture down there. Not only do you get to see a fucking Bugatti Chiron or a LaFerrari or a Aventador SVJ. There's just crazy cars all the time up and down the streets, but also the roads and the driving culture when it comes to actually driving is a little different. They have Mustang GT500s as police cars and Bugatti Chirons and Lamborghinis as police cars for a fucking reason, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't because they're driving slow. It just seems like a cool culture that I think I would almost vibe with to an extent more than American culture sometimes, which is definitely just cool to see. You know, different cultures having things that you like in it. Not every culture is, you know, just for one person, or not every person is suited for one type of culture. I think bringing in multiple different cultures in people's lives is definitely a benefit to everybody who does it. Um, so it's always cool for me whenever I see things in Dubai or in vlogs or in YouTube videos of other people's culture, and just things that they do and are used to compared to things that I do and that I'm used to. Um, like, I just thought it was so fucking crazy to speak on the car culture, for example. They were shooting this vlog at nighttime, and I guess it was, you know, at the end of Khamzat Chimaev's training day, or maybe it was in the morning when he was on the way to camp. But just shooting it completely dark out in general, in the lighting or in the surrounding setting. It was just dark out, and Hamzat Chimaev had the roof down to his fucking Ferrari. It looked like an A12 Superfast, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It could have been, you know, any type of convertible Ferrari that they make. Definitely was up there in price, it looked like, but just to have the top down at nighttime, you usually don't see that a lot in with convertibles in the U.S. But I just think it was really cool for him to have the top down, shooting a vlog, kind of carefree it looked like. But just having a good time in general. I think that's kind of Hamzat Chimaev's personality, and it just seems like all he's about is training, and I definitely got that message through that video of he's just trying to fight, 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 and train, 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 and that's just what his main focuses are right now. Um, Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I don't know if this is with the whole Guram thing. I believe Guram is a good friend of Hamzat. I could be wrong with that. I could be misspeaking, saying that they're good friends or that they're training partners. It looked like it from afar. It seemed like Hamzat Chimaev was a pretty big fan of Guram, and Guram seemed like he had that Islamic type of culture to himself. Um, whether he was part of the Islamic culture, I don't know, or the Islam culture, I'm not too sure of. I don't want to misspeak and say he is if he isn't, but it looked like it was. It seemed like he was a part of Hamzat's camp, and I believe Hamzat is as well part of the Islam type of culture and religion. And if usually you see when guys are part of that religion, they are pretty close in training partners or in training, and are big. They want to see each other succeed, you know. Um, Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know if Guram was going to Dagestan or going to Dubai, or whether they were meeting in Dubai, or whether Hamzat lives in Dubai. I have no clue on their living situations, or if they were from Dagestan and moved to Dubai. I have no clue. Or if they're just going to Dubai for their training camps. That would be a really smart move if that's where they're better. Like, if I don't even know if that training facility was a UFC PI, a Performance Institute that they have in Dubai for the UFC. That might be a thing. I have no fucking clue. I really wish that's the one thing I did research in. But I'm not even gonna focus on it now since we're kind of getting to the end of this. But whether they went to Dubai or not, whether they train in Dagestan or not, I do know that a lot of people are going to Dagestan, are going over to that Russian area, that Mid East area in the world, as kind of to get a good wrestling experience, to gain wrestling knowledge, to get better at the skill of grappling in general. Now, whether you think it is or not, I'm straight up saying that Dagestan is becoming a tourist spot for wrestling. A lot of wrestling tourists, as you would call them, fans of wrestling, fans of grappling, they're not only going to Dagestan, but they are getting people from Dagestan and flying them out to their camps. You saw actually Cody Garbrandt in the Khamzat Chimaev vlog in Abu Dhabi or in Dagestan. I don't know exactly when the clip was filmed. I don't know where. I assume it was Abu Dhabi since the vlog title was Abu Dhabi Vlog 1 and Abu Dhabi Vlog 2. Again, I could be misspeaking on that if the scene was recorded somewhere else. But to me, it looked like it was in Abu Dhabi. But either way, Cody Garbrandt is an American fighter born and raised, and he's flying out to Abu Dhabi when his fight is scheduled in March in Las Vegas. So he is flying and making an effort to fly out of the country across the whole entire world, essentially, to get good training in, which I don't think you see a lot, or you haven't seen a lot in the past years of the UFC. A lot of times you see people fly to Las Vegas. You see people fly to Florida, fly to Extreme Couture, Jackson's MMA. I know there's another big one. American Top Team. Team Alpha with Uriah Faber. There's multiple big teams when it comes to MMA, or big gyms and big camps, mostly gyms, when it comes to these big MMA fighters that they're used to training at in America. And it seems like with the grappling experience that a lot of these Russian fighters have and have brought over and have shown, it seems like that it's starting to flip, and there's some. I said Cody Garbrandt. I also want to prove my point more. Jan Blachowicz did the same thing, and Charles Oliveira as well did the same thing. Now, whether they had Dagestan fighters come out to them, to their camp, or they went out to there, I'm assuming most likely they eventually made it out to Russia. And some people might be wondering why that's a thing. Why don't you just have someone... Why is someone flying out to your training camp a little different than flying into Dagestan, Russia? Number one, Dagestan, Russia is a cold and different place than anywhere on Earth, I'm sure. If you just look at a lot of the guys that have came from Dagestan into the UFC... A lot of them are very, very strong mentally. A lot of them, it seems like they are very hard to break mentally. If you look at the whole entire Khabib versus Conor thing, that's a great example. If you look at the whole entire Islam Makhachev getting ready and preparing for the Charles Oliveira fight, he looked like a stone cold killer for it being his first time against a pretty experienced guy against a 5-round fight for a title. And to have that preparation and to not show nervousness, I think is really impressive for someone to do, no matter who you are. So I do think that Dagestan has that culture there, that type of vibe to it of, we ain't taking we ain't pussies, we ain't bitches. We don't cry about our problems here. And if that's something that you can get from Russia that can help you in your training camp, it can definitely be beneficial for you, especially, 12 weeks of that going into a fight, or the last week or 2-3 weeks leading up to your training camp could definitely help you compared to just having to deal with regular everyday bullshit that you have to deal with in everyday life here in America. So it definitely could be a different culture over there. Another example of this is you see a lot of people go to Thailand to train Muay Thai. And a lot of people go over there to not only train Muay Thai, but to train other things in mixed martial arts. And just say that the atmosphere there, the vibe there, the culture there when you train there is so much better than training at a gym in America, or a regular gym anywhere else on the country, or anywhere else in the world, I'm sorry. So I do think that is just an interesting thing that might be happening more and more with the coming years in the UFC. And with fighters in general, they want to focus on their grappling and get better with their grappling. Well, if you want to get better, you're going to have to go to Dagestan. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, ladies and gentlemen. To wrap this whole thing up, if any of you made it here, and if you are one of those guys that commented on my last video, let's sit down and have a little conversation one-on-one right now. It seemed like a lot of you guys wanted to call me out on some of my opinions or some of my takes. And it was mostly to the Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski fight. I already dealt with the Paddy Pimblett haters and Jared Gordon dick riders. I dealt with you fuck faces. And along with the Paddy Pimblett fans and dick riders. Yeah, I dealt with all of you fuck faces too. But to anybody saying that I'm not a fan of Islam Makhachev or I'm a bigger fan of Alexander Volkanovski, I'm a fan of both of the fighters. Like, in my opinion, I could give two fucking shits who actually wins the fight. I'm here for the entertainment and to break down what happens. I could care less. Now, whether you want to fucking ride on this one stat that Islam Makhachev gets hit every one significant strike per minute and is the is the best UFC fighter in the UFC right now when it comes to significant strikes getting landed onto him, I don't give a shit, bro. I look at fighters judging their character, judging their way that they're talking and acting leading up to a fight necessarily. It's not just stats that I go off of. And if anyone were to just go off stats, you know, predicting fights would be fucking boring. So, to anyone just, you know, coming at me or saying that I am a big Alexander Volkanovski fan, well, I definitely fucking am, number one. So, you're definitely right there. I'm just a fan of him. When I say I'm a fan of somebody, I'm a fan of their character. I'm a fan of the way they fight. I'm a fan of the way they take care of the way they perceive themselves and take care of the way that they act, the way that they act when it comes to fighting, the way they act when it comes to shit talking. Do they back it up? Are they shit talking for a reason, and are they backing it up? And Alexander Volkanovski, I think, is definitely a big proponent on that. He shit talked a lot in The Ultimate Fighter and whooped Brian Ortega's ass. Yes, he definitely got caught in some tricky situations, but for the most part made Brian Ortega look like he just came out of facial reconstruction. So, going on to the Islam side of things, Islam Makhachev. I haven't watched Islam Makhachev as much as I've watched Alexander Volkanovski. Number one, Alexander Volkanovski has been in the spotlight longer. So anybody who watches the UFC in general is going to see Alexander Volkanovski more than they have seen Islam Makhachev recently. I think a lot of people, if you ask them, do you know Alexander Volkanovski or Islam Makhachev, 6 months ago, every answer would have been Alexander Volkanovski, I bet. Not saying Islam Makhachev was a nobody or is a nobody. The dude has made the biggest name for himself since he beat Charles Oliveira. That was his biggest win in his career so far, which, you know, he's definitely proved himself. He is definitely an elite grappler, an elite fighter. The whole thing about Alexander Volkanovski not being a better striker than Islam Makhachev, that's where you're fucking drunk, my man. I don't know what you're smoking or drinking or fucking what pills you're fucking taking. But Islam Makhachev is not and will not be a better striker come February 11th, I think it is. Or February, I think it's February 11th. But come February in UFC 284, Alexander Volkanovski will be, and after that will still be the better striker. I said it in my last video, and that's where I think a lot of people maybe got misspoke on my words or misunderstood me. I was really just trying to say how Alexander Volkanovski has fought a really good striker, Max Holloway, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And anybody who does that is going to be an extremely advanced striker after that. Not only do you have the experience of being in that fight, but you have the capability of going back and rewatching the fight, seeing what you did good and seeing what you did bad, and then focusing on that again in your training and in your developing as a fighter. So, wake up. Don't be a pussy. Don't let your private parts get hurt when I talk, please. I loved reading your opinions. I still will love reading your opinions, whether you shit talk me or a fighter. If you guys want to shit talk me and disagree with me, let me fucking know, because I'll talk about it day in and day out of why I think I'm right and why I think that you guys are wrong. Even though I don't think you guys are wrong, Islam Makhachev was definitely on the back burner a little bit in that video. And I probably could have Dick rode him a little bit more compared to Alexander Volkanovski. I was stroking him off very, very well. I wanted him to come to climax very quickly, if you know what I'm saying. But with that, that's going to be the end of this podcast. Tune in later this week, Wednesday and Friday, for the videos I'm going to be posting, as well as the news on when the live stream is going to happen, covering the whole entire grappling event and the next UFC fight nights and pay-per-views. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you are new here. If you guys aren't new here and you always watch my videos without subscribing, I really don't know what the fuck you're doing. If you're here to shit talk me, let me fucking be shit talked in the comments. Please bring it on. And if you guys enjoyed the videos, please let me know. I know you guys sometimes do that as well, and you guys let me know when you enjoyed it, and that absolutely warms my fucking heart. So, always put a smile on my face when you guys let me know that you are enjoying the videos and receiving them the way I want them to be received, which is right in your face. Have a good week. It's Monday. Get through the rest of this week strong. And yeah, it's the rest of my little motivational speak at the end. Have a great fucking week.